Good evening, everyone. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and I'm your host, Joe Abadi. Thank you, Jordan Woodworth, Chelsea, and Susie, everyone who helps put the show together every week. I'm glad you're all here to join me tonight. Let's get down to the starting line, and I'll tell you more about what you're going to see on the show. In the next time, try this segment, we're going to talk about how to clean up some aluminum sprockets. We've also got on the show tonight a very special moto showcase. We'll be looking at a Fox replica RM125. In the Here's the Problem segment, we've got several questions that have come in this week from viewers. We'll answer each and every one of them. In the What's It Worth segment, a very special guest will be coming in tonight. You won't just see me talking about a bike and what's it worth. You're going to hear a little banter back and forth. I think you're going to enjoy it. The 522 project. I've been waiting a long time to bring this to the show. You're going to see the first segment of it tonight. Trivia, we're giving away the Harley book, compliments of Keith Geisner. We'll have a trivia question for you a little bit later on in the show. You call in, you can win yourself a book. Hey, if you can right now, share the show. Just reach down on your phone or go over your computer, hit that share button. Let some people know you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Invite them over so they can join us as well. The YouTube thing is going well. We could always use your help, though. After the show tonight, go over to YouTube and please subscribe. It's free, it's fast, and it's fun. Just go over to YouTube. You can subscribe, then you can watch all the episodes we've ever done in HD on a big screen TV. As time goes on, we're going to be having the show live on YouTube. I want to thank our sponsors, as always, Preston Petty Products, Vmxq&A, AMSOIL, and FastGuyStuff.com. Thank you for all you do on the show. On tonight's Next Time Try This segment, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about refinishing your rear sprockets if they're aluminum. Over time, they can get oxidized, they can get scraped up if you had a chain derailment, and just look tired overall. In this segment, I'm going to show you how with some sandpaper and a Scotch-Brite pad, you can freshen up that sprocket before you put it back on your bike. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that your sprocket is free of any grease, grime, dirt, anything that's going to impede doing a good job on it. I like to clean things up with a little AMSOIL brake and parts cleaner. Of course, you can do this prior to, and if you have a parts washer, you can put it in there. Just make sure everything is about as clean as you can get it. I'm only going to do half the sprocket, keeping the time in mind here on the show. I begin with some 240 grit paper like this. Okay, 240 grit, and I like to put it on a board like this, a little sanding block. And I start off with my 240, covers a lot of area, and I begin going around with pretty firm pressure, and I begin going around in circles, both to the left and to the right. You can cover a lot of the sprocket if you do it on a long board sanding block like I'm showing you right here. You can also do it by hand. Nothing says you have to use a sanding block. Going around in little tight circles is what makes it look nice, though. After the 240, I move up to the next finer grit. I use a little 320. I put that on my board, follow up again. Nice tight circles, keeping real firm pressure on there and keeping the board flat against the sprocket. After I finish with that, I use a green Scotch-Brite pad. It's got a pretty coarse grit to it, but it's, of course, finer than the sandpapers that I've used. And I may even follow up with some brown or red Scotch-Brite if I'm in the mood, or if I have it, I want it to look a little bit nicer. And there you have it. Got a sprocket that looks nice and fresh. It's not brand new, but it doesn't look like this side of the sprocket either. That's my tip for today. On next time, try this. So next time, try that. Jordan, up next we have in the Moto Showcase a 1976 RM125B that was sent in to us by Rich Clark. This is a Pat Richter replica, and if you remember back in those days, it was really an amazing bike. It was one of the first bikes out there that was ever seen with water cooling, certainly before the Yamaha came out with the OW for Bob Hanna. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this bike as Jordan goes through the slides. It has a thermosiphon cooling system, Motocross Fox replicated porting, 17.5-inch Fox Airs, along with Simon's forks. It's got Sun rims, Buchanan spokes. Showrus built that pipe. It's a Motocross Fox replica. It's got a Mototech ignition, Preston Petty Tony D style front fender. It's got a full floating rear brake, and it's got a brake plate upgrade with groove pads front and rear. It's got a 520 chain kit NOS cables. It's got a rear sprocket and rear sprocket bolt mod to it, which was very popular back then. The frame and hubs have been kept powder coated. Keith Klump did the Motocross Fox paint job on the tank, and he did do a beautiful job on that. It's got fresh seals. The bearings are all new throughout the bike. It's got an IRC 418 in the rear, a 321 up front, a gunner gasser, Magura brake front, and an OEM clutch lever, same as the original Richter bike. Rich Clark, you've sent us in bikes before. Every one of them is spectacular. I want to thank you for sending in this one. It's so authentic the way you've had this bike reproduced and had all the things made for it to make it look just so perfect. So Rich Clark, for doing that, I'm going to be sending you some fastguystuff.com stickers. I want to thank you again for sending in that amazing bike. And later on in the show, we're going to have a trivia question that's kind of going to pertain to this. So stick around for that. You'll win yourself a Harley book. What's up next, Jordan? Here's the problem segment. Here's where we take some questions from you every week. We do a little research, and hopefully we bring you some answers that are going to help you out. Jordan, what's up first? Jerry Cantone. I took your advice on flushing out a rusty tank with cider vinegar, and it worked. I'm still a bit concerned about any flaky particles that are in the tank. What's the filter that I should use? The best filter you should use is built by Go On Products, and it's right here. This is the best filter I've ever seen. It's made of aluminum. It comes in two pieces, so you can unscrew it and clean out that screen. It's got a spring in there that keeps tension on it, so you don't have to worry about it coming apart. This is really, really the best filter you're ever going to buy. It's probably the last filter you're ever going to buy. You can easily get off your gas lines from it without worrying about cracking it, and it's not going to dry out from the sun like some of your plastic filters will. Go On Products. Go see them online. This filter is also available from some aftermarket people as well, but they do have a website. It even comes in some anodized colors. It's a very trick looking little part, and it's a great filter. That's what I would recommend you use, Jerry. Nikki Balls says or asks, metal or plastic tanks, do you advise sealing them? At this point, I really, really don't, and I'll tell you why, Nikki. Plastic tanks at this point can be polished. There are guys out there doing it. Phil Cox comes to mind. James Sharp comes to mind. So going back a few years, the guys were lining them only because they wanted to paint them to make them look better. You really don't have to do that anymore. Technology has come a long way, and guys have really shown that plastic can be polished. It can be brought up like new again. Jordan, next slide. Now, something else. Here's a guy called Metalworks. For $100, this guy guarantees he will get out everything that's inside that rusty tank of yours. Or maybe if you have a liner inside of it and it's starting to fail, they're very, very difficult. They're technically impossible to get out without cutting open the tank. But this guy at Metalworks says for $100, he can get it out. The downside is you're going to lose the paint job. You probably don't care at that point. But if you send it to him, they can get out all the liner that's inside your steel tank and give you a nice fresh start. Why I don't recommend liners anymore is because of the ethanol in the gas. So many of them are failing. So if you are going to use one, I would still recommend that you drain the tank afterward. Next slide, Jordan. You can also use a product like this to get rust out. We just showed you a guy who charges you $100 to get it clean, but Evapo Rust works really, really well too, along with cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar works great. The vapor rust works well too. The thing is, you got to keep them clean inside. You either got to keep them filled with gas with no lining in it. If you're going to put a lining in it, do the pinholes, and sometimes that's the only choice you have. You're going to have to drain it every time. Otherwise, the ethanol gas is going to get in there. It's going to wreak havoc with the liner that you do put in it. Yes, there are different ways that you can remove rust too. Here's one electrolytic cleaning of a gas tank where you use a battery, you put it in with an anode, and it causes a current. You can do it that way too. I would suggest you send it to a professional to be done, or if you want to do it yourself inexpensively and get a great job, do it with the cider vinegar. It works. So many guys are using it. The only thing you have to remember at the end, after it's over and you get it all flushed out, use a gallon of distilled water and a half a box of baking soda to flush it out. That'll stop it from flash rusting. Or if you're going to use it right away, fill that tank up with gas and your problem will be solved. If you have any further questions, I would strongly suggest you join our page on Facebook, Motorcycle Gas Tank Q&A. There's a lot of guys there with a wealth of knowledge, very, very helpful. You can go there, post some pictures or your questions. You're going to get the answers to the questions that you might have right there. Motorcycle Gas Tank Q&A on Facebook. Pipe finishes from Robert Curé. What do you think of Cerakote Competition ceramic, powder coat, and paint? There's been a lot of talk, again, lately between ceramic, powder coating, and paint, all types of different things. Number one, I would never recommend you powder coat a pipe. In that picture, you can see on the screen, there's a Harley there with a black tank. It's got flat black pipes on it. That might be good on a Harley. It might look nice. It might last a long time. But look, we're motocross guys here, especially vintage motocross. I don't recommend you ever powder coat a pipe. It's going to get nicked up. It's going to get dented. And then you're going to have even a more difficult time removing that powder coating when you want to go to get it repaired. I don't think it's a good idea. Cerakote, we're hearing a lot about that these days. It does have the properties that seems to draw the heat away. Guys are even using them on turbochargers, on race cars, and things like that. I don't particularly find the finish that appealing, especially on a pipe. And you got, of course, you have the ceramic coating too. It's getting out of hand with the vintage bikes with how many different things people want to use to try and, for lack of a better word, cut a corner. Because if you're looking for it to appear better, well, it didn't look that good originally. So stop really getting so far off the reservation, so to speak, with it, and going to things that aren't really working. For my money, the best bet is strip the pipe, get the dents out, use some VHT, satin finish, flame-proof paint. That's the best thing going. That's what looks the best. That's what works the best. And if you have to make a repair on the bike, you're not going to wind up spending money on Cerakote or custom ceramics or powder coating. That's how I see it, Robert. What's it worth segment tonight? You know, since the show began, we've been doing a what's it worth segment. Each week I come in, I find a bike on eBay, I tell you a little bit about it, and I let you know whether I think whether the bike was really worth it or it wasn't. Well, I've brought in a special guest with me this week, and we talked about the value of this bike. So, Jordan, let's see what Bill Masho and I had to say about this 400 Cross for $4,900. Today, we're going to be taking a look at this 1970 Husky 400 Cross that sold on eBay this week for $4,900. At first glance, Bill, what are you seeing here?
Well, you know, I like the 400 Crosses a lot. It's an iconic bike.
Mm-hmm.
This one looks to have real good bones. It's a survivor, I would say. It's got most of the good components on it you want to see on a stock 400 Husky. So that would be like the front fender bracket is the round tubular one. It has the right fill gas tank on it. Still has the original seat. Looks like the shocks were changed, and yet it's still running most of the original gear. It's a good solid unit.
Yeah, I'm just going through the pictures as you were describing it, and I think the description is very accurate. But like most bikes, we have no idea what's going on internally with it. However, if someone's buying it, I'm sure they're going to restore it, and they're going to want to be going through those things as well. At $4,900, I would be a little concerned from what I've seen other bikes sell for. And this is just looking at it from the buyer's standpoint. Where am I going to be in this bike in dollars and cents by the time I'm done getting this restoration completed. Now, if I'm doing it myself, I think I'm going to be in pretty good shape. If you had to commission somebody to do it, I think the person could be upside down a little in the end. How do you see it, Bill?
Yeah, pretty much the same way. Whether you bought this to be a race bike or bought it to perform a restoration, either by yourself or with help, the
Mm-hmm.
price is probably a little bit rich at this level. A bike is going to need a lot of investment in it, whether you get it prepared for the track or whether you want to have a concourse restoration. So I would want to be in this bike at a little bit cheaper price point if I was going to do either.
Yeah, I would agree. But you wonder to yourself, you want to be into it a little bit better, but how low is low enough? In other words, the bike's almost $5,000. Am I all of a sudden walking away, clicking my heels because I got it for 3,500? I mean, yes and no, because I mean, just the gas tank alone, if we were looking at that, as far as stripping it, as far as rechroming it, we both know what it takes to make that tank look nice. But yes, every dollar counts. So overall, I have to agree with you on the bones of the bike. I think it's all there. It's an excellent platform to begin with. At 4,900 bucks, a little stiff, but not the worst deal I've ever seen due to how complete it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. These don't come up for sale all the time, and it's always the dynamic of timing and motivation of both the buyer and the seller. And in
Yeah,
this case, this bike was listed with a $4,900 starting bid. So although he said it's no reserve, he actually set a reserve at 4,900.
yeah.
Interestingly enough, there was only one bidder on this bike. So they came in at the 4,900 level. Nobody made an attempt to outbid them. They now own it for 4,900 bucks.
Hey,
So
Bill, well, I do agree on that. There's one other question that just came to my mind as we were talking. What would you value this bike at with a good quality of restoration in the end? What would you say the bike would be worth?
well, that dynamic changes from time to time. Bikes go in and out of favor a little bit, but
Mhm.
a 7400 Cross is such an iconic bike, and it's on the short list of many collectors. So a fully restored, nicely restored version, correctly restored version of this bike is at least 10,000,
Yeah.
um, up to 11.5 even.
Yeah, I would agree on that, Bill. And you know what really amazes me most about this listing is that they never once mentioned Steve McQueen.
Yeah, that's surprising, isn't it?
It is because we often see that. Bill Mashal, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak to me about this Husky 400 Cross. And I hope everyone watching the show tonight enjoyed the conversation between Bill and I.
Pleasure to be here, Joe.
Thanks, Bill. There it is, 7400 Cross. Bill Mashal and I sort of agreed on that one on a lot of points. On future episodes, we're going to have Bill back probably every week. And I bet you're going to see some instances where we don't agree on some things. But I want to thank Bill Mashal for helping us out with that. And I think it brings a nice dynamic to the show to hear someone else's opinion other than mine on what's it worth. The 522 project, this is something that I've been working on for quite a few years. It actually began prior to me shooting the pilot episode for American Motocross Restoration, and then I stopped because it was on the list of things that we wanted to do on that show. It was such a very, very interesting project. It is called 522 because it was the number of Marty Smith in his rookie year. So I began calling it the 522 project. What we're going to be doing is bringing you a video week to week showing you the upgrades and what we're doing to make this bike a replica of the 1974 RC 125 that Marty rode to his first 125cc national championship. A lot of people have tried to replicate this bike over the years. A lot of guys take their 74 through 77 bike, they paint it red, they do a couple of things, and then suddenly they attach a name to it. I've seen a couple that have come close. When you see what we're doing with this bike over the next several episodes, you'll see how close we really come to it. Jordan, let's take a look at what we did this week. Let's take a look at both frames right now, and I'll show you some of the modifications that have been made. The first one, which of course is the biggest one, is the fact that you could see on the left, the frame in prime, is the wishbone configuration, so we will then be able to have our center port cylinder. On the right is a stock 77 frame, which had a side port. Some other modifications, if you look back here, you can see where this rail has been modified on the 522 frame. On the stock frame, you could see where those bars are actually bent and welded into that top tube. The reason I chose 1977 frames as opposed to 1974 was really based on just a simple fact of availability. I really didn't want to cut up any 1974 frames in order to complete this project. However, on a 1977 frame stock, it does not come with a frame loop on the back. The motorcycle that we will be replicating, the RC125 1974, did come with a loop on the back, so we had some loops made and we added them to the frame, as you can see here. We added some threaded dowels right here, threaded sleeves. We put them in there so we'll be able to mount our fender as it was found originally. You didn't find mounting holes like that on a 1977 frame. Something else I want to point out here are two brackets that have been added to this bike. There's one right here, and there's another one right here. These have been added so we can add our side covers exactly like the way side covers were mounted on a 1974 Honda RC125. The purpose of the modification of this rail right here being moved and made straight up here where it meets the frame is so that we'll be able to mount these side panels, which are very similar to the ones found on the 74 RC125. So we will be able to mount them with this rail actually showing. That's the way it was found on the bike originally in 1974. Right now you can see this mount right here. I left it exposed. I just wanted to show you how, with the seat on, how that would look. You won't see that once the panel is mounted. The panel will actually be mounted over that, and then it will be attached to it. Another thing I'd like to point out is how these engine mounts were added to the frame. There's a triangle piece that sits right here, one on each side, and that's what holds the engine in the frame. What we did was we had these sleeves made, and we had them welded in the frame. You can see here the detail of the weld on that. What this will do is will give us the availability to use actual Honda bolts when it comes time to mount our engine in the frame, and everything will look real tidy the way it should. The 522 project. More to come next week. I'm going to be showing you what we did in order to replicate the swing arm to that bike. Jordan, I want to thank you for the great job you've done all evening long with Vintage Motocross Q&A, and especially the way you brought that to the screen tonight. Jordan, what's up next? Trivia. I love it. I love trivia because I love giving stuff away. And Keith Geisner, of course, has given us the book, Finding Number 49. We give them away the first Wednesday of every month. So the first one to call in does not win the bike, Jordan. They win this book, Finding Number 49. Jordan, let's get the question up on the screen so people can get a chance to win this. Earlier, I mentioned when I showed you the Rich Clark bike that Pat Richter rode. That's what kind of brought the trivia question up to me tonight. I'd like you to name 3 racers other than Pat Richter who raced for Motocross Fox during that era. 3. There's like 6. There's like 6 altogether. If you could name 3 other than Pat Richter, call in to 925-234-8181. Susie will take your call. Tell us 3 other riders who rode for Motocross Fox during that era other than Pat Richter. And if you won in the last 30 days or the past couple of weeks, don't call in. I'm going to have to start doing that like a radio station where if you've called in and you won the past 30 days, you can't win. So hopefully somebody else will call in, they'll answer that question, and you're going to get a book from Keith Geisner, compliments of Vintage Motocross Q&A. In the product spotlight tonight, we have Preston Petty Products. We are, of course, an authorized dealer for Preston Petty Products, so you can go to their website at any time and order whatever you like. Thank you, Paul Standard and Preston Petty. Now, this week, there is a special. It's the same special as it was last week, and I'll tell you why I'm doing that. It's 10% off across the board on everything on the Preston Petty website. But here's what you need to do. You need to inbox me for the code. But because not everybody watches the show or maybe catches this at the same time, what I do is I put up the special in an individual post after the show is over, telling you that there's a 10% off special. On there, I ask you to comment, send me the code. And then I send you the code to your inbox. So pay attention to that. Last week, I had 10 people ask me to send me the code. I sent 10 people the code. Only one ordered from Preston Petty. So I want to make it less complicated. Look for the post after the show. Fill in the comment box. Send me the code. I'll send it to you. Then you can order from Preston Petty. You can save 10% across the board. Thank you, Preston Petty Products and Paul Stannard. Jordan, what do we got next? Oh, Vmxq. You know, working on these 522 projects, I did learn a lot throughout that process. And I'll tell you, one of the things I was surprised with was how many bikes had the original return spring in there for that Honda. Whether it's a 74 through 76 125, a 175 MR, or the MT 125, for $29.95, Vmxq has a brand new spring that you could put in your bike. You can't beat that deal for $29.95. It's not something you want to fail. So get over to Vmxq after the show, check them out, Kickstarter return spring, replace that thing that's 45 years old sitting in there, just waiting to fail. Vmxq. Let's take a look at their commercial, Jordan, while we're at it.
Classic and vintage dirt bikes are more than a hobby. It's not just about the ride. It's about the work that goes in. The work that keeps you connected to the ride. It's about bringing the bike back to life and doing it with your own hands. It's about the adrenaline and adventure. And when it comes to putting all the pieces together, only Vmxq knows the bikes and parts the way you do. Vmxq. Keep the ride going.
Vmxq.com. Keep the ride going. I love watching that commercial every week, and it seems that we have a winner for the trivia contest. This is Joe. You're on the air with Vintage Motocross Q&A. Who am I speaking to?
Joe Stewart. How you doing there, Joe?
Hey, Joe Stewart. I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Doing okay. Watching your show.
I appreciate that. Hey, back in the era of Pat Richter and Motocross Fox, there was quite a lineup of some really great riders out there. Can you give me 3 of them that rode that bike or a bike like that?
Well, I got a few here wrote down. I'm pretty sure Danny Chandler rode for him, Steve Wise, Mickey Boone, Mark Barnett, Donnie Cantalupi. There seemed to be a 6th one, but I can't recall his name.
Pat Maroney.
Okay, yeah, okay.
But anyway, I mean,
next.
you know what, Joe? I only asked you for 3 and you named 6. I almost feel like I should send you 2 books.
I've had the disease for quite a while, Joe. It's all good.
Well, I really appreciate you watching the show every week. And I'm going to put Susie back on the line. She's going to get your address. And tomorrow we're going to get you finding number 49. We'll send it right out to you. Okay, Joe?
Great. Oh, man, that's neat.
All righty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. There you go, Susie.
Okay.
Hold on, let me get your address.
Joe Stewart, the winner of finding number 49. We have announcements coming up. Jordan, what's the first one we got? Oh, Vintage Motocross Radio. I'm really enjoying doing this show every Sunday. And we have a new guest coming up. I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. But right now, Jordan's probably got a couple of little excerpts from my guest last week, who was Lars Larson. We're going to be doing another one this Sunday at 11 a.m. in the morning. But right now, let's listen to what Lars Larson had to say on last week's episode of Vintage Motocross Radio.
Some of my buddies said, "Hey, you're going to America," and you know, so I kept my face straight. You know, yeah, sure. But how did you know that? Well, we heard Torsten Harman talk about it. Oh, okay. So at a Swedish championship, I walked up to Torsten. I said, "Excuse me, but my buddies are telling me I'm going to America, and they got that from you." "Oh, shoot," Torsten said, "I forgot to tell you." Hey, this guy came one day down, and started to talk, hey, what do you think about using titanium to make handlebars, to make frames and stuff? I said, well, I don't know. And he said, we know a factory that can weld titanium and stuff. So we went there and made the prototype and put it together. And we went to Indian Dunes, we went to Colorado, we went to Unadilla, and it was 5 or 6 races across the nation. And at the first race in Indian Dune, I remember there was a little bracket broke off, and that was the only thing that ever happened to that frame. So I was lucky. I mean, the bike was so light, it was a dream to ride. And I was lucky to winning just about all the races on the bike. And unfortunately, titanium was outlawed. The claim was they didn't know for sure if titanium would hold up, and blah, 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 and the cost. And I tried to argue, what were you talking about the cost? What about the guy that comes in a big motorhome versus the guy that comes with a bike in the trunk, or the guy that rolls up to the starting line every motor with new tires on?
Yeah.
I mean, who are you going to stop? What do you say?
Progress?
Yeah. And I mean, we made handlebars and a few other products, and we sold a bunch of those things, and then it was outlawed.
Go hear that entire interview, go over to Vintage Motocross Radio. You can hear that and a lot of other interviews too with some very interesting people, from Brad Lackey to Garrett Walsink to Harry Clem and so many more. That's at Vintage Motocross Radio this week at 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. My guest will be, drumroll please, Scott Wallenberg. Scott Wallenberg, the publisher, of course, of Racer X magazine. He's been in the magazine business a whole lot longer than you think. In fact, he's been in it since he's about 14 years old. He told me a little bit about that on the phone, and he's also had a very interesting career as a racer, as a factory monarch rider, and he did so many other things and has always been involved in motocross his entire life. So this Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, join me at Vintage Motocross Radio, where my guest will be Scott Wallenberg. The CZ race, which was on again, and then it was off again, and then it was on again. CZ World Championship is now off permanently and will not come back until 2021. They're looking at dates of April 23rd, 24th, and 25th in 2021. So for this year, unfortunately, the CZ World Championship has been canceled. Stay tuned to their website. They got a Facebook page. They'll tell you more about what's going on. Not that I have a slide for it right now, but I also read today that outdoor nationals for motocross, Lucas Oil National, has now been postponed, and they're talking about starting that up sometime in April. Starting up that sometime in August. I don't know what's going on with that, but that's the latest that I've read today as far as a big race being canceled. So another thing that has been rescheduled is Terry Good's International Motocross Museum. That was also supposed to take place sometime in April. It's a fundraiser. It is rescheduled to October 24th. Go on Facebook to the International Motocross Museum, and you'll be able to see more information about that. We're all looking forward to seeing Terry Good's dream come true of having a motocross museum, and there'll be a big fundraiser for it out in Chicago, October 24th. Marty Smith commemorative sticker kit is still available. Rich Vasallo has done a great job getting those stickers out there for just $20. I want to thank Rich Vasallo, of course, Wally Hackensmith for donating some of his artwork, and of course, Rich Designs for producing this beautiful sticker pack to commemorate Marty Smith. Get them now while they're still available, $20. Go to USA, $18.99 at AOL.com. Rich also takes Venmo. Get over there. All the money goes to the children. It's a great cause. Get some while you can. T-shirts. Now, tonight during the show, you're probably saying, wow, look at that T-shirt on Joe. I wonder if I can get one of those. Yeah, you can. $21.99, you get a shirt just like this. It's made of good cotton. It's a Hanes shirt, $21.99. This is something that Jordan put together. He's running the whole operation there. It's not really directly to the show. So there is a link in the show description. You can go over, get a shirt like this. It comes in white, it comes in all different sizes. It's very comfortable. I like it. Quality of the logo is good. So get over there, get yourself a t-shirt for just $22. Jordan, great job. FastGuyStuff.com supplying us with stickers every week for everybody that sends a bike into the Moto Showcase. I want to thank Sean Gomes and all the people over at FastGuyStuff.com for keeping us well supplied with stickers. Go visit them today. They've got more stickers than you can imagine, all period correct, certain things from the era. Sean Gomes, FastGuyStuff.com. There's still sponsorship opportunities available for Vintage Motocross Q&A. Send me a message, inbox me. I'll tell you a bit more about it. So now, at this point, not only are you going to get the benefit of advertising here on the show, like Vmxq, like AMSOIL, like Preston Petty products, but I'm going to bring you over to the radio show on Sunday too, and the slide's going to be going across the screen for an hour or so of every interview I do. So ask me about becoming a sponsor for Vintage Motocross Q&A. You get the benefits of it if you go over to Vintage Motocross Radio as well. Jordan, is that it for tonight? I want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in to Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank Joe Stewart for calling in with his information on the Motocross Fox deal, and I'm glad he won a book. And today, somebody got a haircut, and he's so anxious to show it to you. Gino, come on, boy. Come on, Gene. Ooh, there you go. Look at him. He's so proud of himself. Thanks for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. That wraps it up for tonight. We'll see you next week. And don't forget, Vintage Motocross Radio on Sunday at 11 a.m.